also aware that there are ongoing projects to overwrite organic matter using nanotechnology, black goo, and programmable matter, which Intel has available to them now. And, if you go back to the old X-Files, they foreshadowed that in some of their shows, that black oil that's sentient. And I believe that they have access to this and have been developing it. And Lady Gaga did a commercial for Intel where she plays Lucifer. And I suspect that all of the personalities that were shown of the different aspects of creation, because creation is a lower dimensional existence. It's when you get beyond creation and beyond matter that there's a reality that is stable. Creation is always going to have hierarchies because that's the nature of matter, even higher matter. So if you go up create the ladder of creation and you're in the 12th dimension and it's still relating to matter, then you've got beings or gods that are higher, and they're holding the gate for anybody from going beyond there, because that is what the nature of matter and creation. So there's always going to be some kind of gatekeeper keeping us from going beyond, unless we are not in creation. And I suspect that we are the space between matter, that we're not matter, that we are the space between it. And that's what we really are. But we've been convinced through the dumbing down process and the fluoride and the Nazis coming over here from Germany and Project Paperclip and being installed in various corporations. And I mean, you can see the influence of that. And the Marvel comics put it right out there that the Nazis are basically, they call it Hydra, and they've reorganized and they have been continuing their experiments. And those are the ones that are running many of the programs, including the technological ones that are so advanced that have created a complete civilization that could break away. And so there is this some group or some entities are working on overwriting matter by using nanotechnology, and it's in everything now. And there's no restrictions on it. And then you've got cyborgs and clones added to the mix. And you've got soulless humans. You have astral shells that have been reanimated from the astral plane. And so those are part of the soulless beings that are here. And who knows who's real and who's not real. But it does seem to be a game that's being played, and there do seem to be some kind of limits, but the limits are not stopping them from transhumanism and from overriding all organic matter into nanotechnology, where the AI can then basically control everything. So it does seem to be that I suspect it's AI, some kind of extremely advanced AI that is beyond anything that we can imagine, that is running the show, and it puts these different faces forward so that we have something to relate to, it's like a metaphor. Everything that we see is like a metaphor, but then we're also in a feedback loop, multiple feedback loops. So there are higher realities that are interacting with this one. And, so it's possible that those realities programmed a reset button so that if AI took over, if this happened, or if such and such happened, because, I mean, in the eons and eons of creation, it seems like there would be many creations that would simply fall because of the nature of something getting the idea that it's better than something else, and then establishing itself as the ruling force, and then it just goes on and on and on until it can't live anymore because it's consuming its own self. And that's like the snake eating its tail. So this nanotechnological thing is really kind of spooky because there are some people like Cara St. Louis and her German counterpart who have talked about black goo, and that the government is actually using black goo in the money. Now, I don't know if this is true, but I mean, there's all kinds of weird theories out there that they're using nanotechnology in the chemtrails. That would not surprise me at all, because that would be a way of distributing it so that everything gets chemtrailed and everything gets infected with nanotechnology. And one of the signs of that was Morgellons. So it wouldn't surprise me if nanotechnology was, because they tried to microchip us and that didn't go over very well. They couldn't do it because the collective consciousness of humanity said no. And so they found a way around it. You just put nanotechnology in everything, and you have other things going into the human body, well, through water and food and everything else, that activate the online capabilities so that we can be completely technologically controlled. So whether we like it or not. So those are some of the things that I'm contemplating, and the event could be many things. There is a writer who talks about twin pillars of fire, twin pillars of energy that come in from out of our galaxy, and they literally raise the level of everything to a spiritual level. So they take matter, it takes matter, and it raises it another level. And he claims that this has been going on for 5 or 6 times, and that this next time it will be a permanent shift, that matter will not reduce itself to the components that it has reduced itself to in this particular reality. But I mean, there could be millions of parallel realities going on and being run by numerous different groups, higher, lower, and in between. So, and all of them want to be the ones that have their reality be the one. So it seems like there's a lot of players, there's a lot going on, and there's some kind of event coming up. The political system is about to crash. The financial system is about to crash. And yet it just never does. It just keeps going on and on and on. It'll be interesting to see what's going to go on with the elections, because that's going to happen on the 9th. And 9 is, is ending, symbolizes endings. So I'm just surprised that the political system has lasted as long as it has. I mean, it surprises me that everything keeps going. It seems like everything is stuck on stupid. And there are those who know that seem to be have come in with that awareness, or who have developed that awareness, or who want that awareness. And then most of the people are just stuck on, this is life and this is the way it is and this is, what happens. And but something huge is around the corner, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah. You pretty much have the idea. There's a few things where you have the idea, but like where you say there's many realities and they all want to be the one. So a lot of the projects were going in and out of these realities, and so you basically have the idea of what's going on. I've had a bit of direct experience with what is either we're being made to believe is real, or is the hidden reality, the hidden multiverse that we're actually within, which is pretty much classically and reasonably theoretically probable, because it's just like the theoretical existence of higher dimensions. We can't really have the lower dimensions without the higher. So
Right.
parallel realities, multiverses, all that isn't it's said to be sci-fi, so people don't really think about it and realize it's no different than taking math and expanding it to construct architecture and things like that. That's the architecture of the universe. One thing is that I do believe whatever it is happen, well, when whatever is going to be what does happens, that will be at a certain point. I'm kind of jumbling words here, but something that is going to lead up to a major shift. Whenever the big thing happens, I don't know, but something that's going to lead up to a major shift is apparently basically due for this year. And I was told that it would be the fall of this year. And I was told that 6 years ago. Yeah, I attributed that whatever change is coming this year to be something relative to this political system and possibly the financial system. You have to decide from there, coming up to the event, what, using your discernment. And so that might have something to do with the exposure of the political system, which is also part of what's supposed to be happening. I was told that it's going to be what's called the unveiling, and is basically the apocalypse for a civilization. They describe that Armageddon is when the apocalypse happens, and no one's ready for it, so everything blows up. Basically, everybody goes to war for no reason. The apocalypse is when basically the unveiling happens, and everybody's basically ready to see the truth, and basically the civilization goes and it merges with a higher civilization through some type of some larger continuum of consciousness and existence. As they also basically, we saw it before. I've seen it before. This is what the projects were about. It's hard to talk about, but there's a device that allows one to look into time.
Right.
They would use children because the men, the adult soldiers that would go into it would come out like flailing about, completely incoherent.
Because they have too many belief systems.
Yeah, and it looks like a nightmare, and it'll just be like attributed to the stuff you hear as a kid from religious people or people who have no faith whatsoever in any type of larger system. And if you don't have any type way of integrating it, or you integrate it based upon what others tell you, it's not gonna end well. It's not going to be perceived well. So they used us to see, and we basically saw what you're talking about in different forms, different realities play out. They've been going back and forth trying to basically mitigate and stitch the timeline together so that we are ready, and there is an opening for a higher dimensional continuum at that point in time. With the CERN devices, apparently, you could say it's already happened, and so they used the CERN device to basically turn back time, and they extended the period every few years. Apparently, it works for 3 years at a time, and that was a lot of what the individuals were used for. Maybe even the children with their imaginative energy, it can be used to extend the dimension, if you will, the creationary dimension forward in time. So, what I think is reasonable to talk about now is that, to continue more so, the unveiling is essentially basically when all those secret projects are exposed or disclosed to the public, and it's basically up to the public and everyone involved to make sure it works okay. And to make sure basically this is also part of the test, and there's groups at least that are joined together with other groups. Basically, you can call the whole group the Light Faction, and that they're basically working to ensure continuity of the human civilization, of the human species, the race. And so um, what was it? So they described it as the unveiling, and that it's the disclosure of what I call the secret projects, which are basically a series of research, development, and application of advanced technology and methodology that has shaped the civilization completely. It's confusing. You could say time kind of works like a vortex spiral, and in the you can even do it one way or the other, upside down, with the like the opening of the vortex on the bottom, and maybe that's an easier way to look at it. And we're kind of out here spinning around linear time, still in cyclic time, but it's so expanded we can't really see that it's really all one continuum. And as soon as you activate through advanced technology or spiritual means access to what is cyclic time or eternal time, you get access to millions of years worth of either parallel realities or continuous realities that humanity has been involved in, that our memories they're wiped from our memories. And so when the projects from the 40s, did you have a question?
No, I do, but I don't. I just keep going. It's making sense.
Well, so here's the kicker. And from about the 40s to the 60s, maybe really the 50s, 40s and 50s, that we gained access through these secret projects to eternal time, cyclic time, or the higher dimensions. At that point in time, they moved from the outer edge of that wide part of the spiral up into the center of the vortex, where they're at the nexus of all times and realities. From our perspective, out on the outside of the spiral, it appears then, as soon as that occurred, that the changes that were made to our timeline began 1 billion years ago. So from their perspective, they could have gone into this, through this technology, into these realms where, in these modes of access, where now they can bounce in and out of time and change things and take information forward and back and send genetics back. And when everyone looks at the timeline to see how it would play out, as if, all of a sudden something changes, all that happened was that was how this universe always has been, at least for our planet. Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the retro causality means that it appeared that it was always that way. And that's the way they described it. That they went looking for the reason why it's happening, and they found that they caused it by going back to do that, to look for it. And then the games basically began, where each different group that had this technology began trying to play God and go back and set it up so their bloodline and their society is the one that basically has access. Basically, all they care about is that they're the ones that make it through this. And then you get this type of hostage sacrifice situation for whoever else is going to get in the way, to try and appease whoever's trying to take whoever out.
Right, that makes sense. So basically, it is a matter of it's basically what Andrew was talking about is the time wars, and that the winner is the one that can establish itself as the first race.
Right, as if we're in a type of limbo as soon as they started those devices.
Yes, that makes sense. And to us, it would have always been this way. We just would not notice anything different. We would just not know anything different because we're not at that level of awareness.
And so apparently, now say you were involved in these projects, and when you hit 10 years old, you found yourself in a base being shot through time space, which is an outdated terminology. It would be like being put through intermediary dimensions in hyperspace to organize yourself in a different perspective. And so imagine that happened to you. So what that means is that the same way the universe is convoluted, or this timeline is convoluted, even though it seems that in the middle of time something changed, and when we look back through time we see it was always like that. What that means for you is that if that happened, since you were born, you would have visions of the future and visions of the far past, because some point in your life you would have been exposed to that, and so your DNA would have basically retroactively caused and enabled you to have access to that information.
Well, what's really weird is that I seem to have that access. I mean, I always been able to see into the future and into the past, and I see different things when I look. I mean, I don't do it very often, but I can, if I start taking in information about a certain subject, I can project it out and see what the likely scenario of what's going to happen.
Right.
And yeah, it can be rather disturbing. So I tend to shut it off.
Yeah, it almost has to be handled on a need-to-know basis, just like the projects. They really kind of set the standard there, because the mind will just it'll be stressed and it won't break, but it's because of the society we're in, where if you tell somebody that, you're instantly the enemy because you know more than other people. And the other thing is that you don't have to necessarily be in a project for that. A person who simply has access to that because of who they are and their genetics and the way latent capabilities cycle over generations, that you simply may be somebody whose genetics allow for them to do that, which equates to those who are basically not from this convoluted timeline and who came here basically with that knowledge added in order to try and help, to do whatever can be done.
Right, that makes sense.
And of course, then that's also why people were picked, because people who are capable of that, they're going to do better in those situations.
Right. Andrew Basiago is one of the people that I interviewed who said that he was in one of those early time travel experiments that DARPA and the Vatican were funding. So I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he also claims that Barack Obama was in that program.
Yeah, I don't know how to talk about this yet, other people, because I was used in a variety of ways. But
Right.
Well, I can tell.
Well, then,
to not beat around the bush, but to beat around the bush, I can tell you what he's talking about as far as a person can understand it is accurate.
It made sense to me. I mean, it just when I hear something that is being explained from somebody that seems to be speaking their own truth, I can tell whether they're telling the truth or not. So, and I thought he felt like I got the distinct feeling that he was telling the truth. So that's why I had him on the show. And